What's up, everyone? Welcome to Bilbronze and Dragons. I'm your host, Bilbron Bafflestone. So, the 2024 rules are out. All 3 core rulebooks have been released, and there's a lot of cool changes. I've had a chance to play the 2024 rule set in a few games and one-shots and such, and I'm really liking the rules changes. There's a lot of stuff for us to talk about, future builds and such to make in future videos. But today I wanted to talk about what I consider to be a pretty significant rules change, the changes to hiding and stealth and invisibility. So from my perspective, there are 3 major changes to those rules. 1, invisibility and hidden are no longer a thing. It's just invisibility now. 2, you no longer ruin the hidden condition by crossing an enemy's line of sight. And 3, invisibility no longer confers attacks at advantage and being attacked at disadvantage if the enemy can see you, which wasn't the case in 2014. So let's talk about all of these in turn. So the first change I think I'm very excited about because it was very confusing that invisibility was different from the hidden condition. If you read the invisibility rules from 2014, it explicitly states that enemies know your location by the sounds that you make and the tracks that you leave, unless you take the hidden condition. And being invisible was one of the potential preconditions to enter the hidden condition. And so basically the way it worked was that turning invisible didn't really conceal your location unless you also took the hidden condition. And this was very confusing for people. I've played with a lot of DMs in different West Marches and such, and it was always just a very confusing rule. And it kind of ruined things like the mislead spell, for example. It creates an illusory image of you at the same time as turning you invisible, you know, with the intent of you sneaking away, and now enemies think your image is you. But unless you also took the hidden condition, they were clued into it right away because they knew that there was something invisible there by the sounds that it made, and so just kind of, you know, ruined the whole thing. So I like that change, and it makes a lot of sense to me. 2, the hidden condition is, or the invisible condition conferred by taking the hide action, is no longer broken by line of sight. So it is still a precondition in order to enter the hidden condition. And then you have to make a DC 15 stealth check in order to enter that condition, which is actually negative for players because it used to be even if you rolled like 13 or 14, you could beat people's passive perception and still be hidden. But now enemies basically have a minimum of 15. And if you make this DC 15 stealth check, you have the invisible condition. Then you're supposed to note your stealth roll, and that was the DC to beat with a perception check or your passive perception. But now you have a specific list of end conditions, and crossing an enemy's line of sight is no longer there. In 2014, it does say that enemies can see you, or you can't hide when an enemy sees you, and in combat, enemies are, you know, exceptionally alert. So crossing line of sight would ruin the hidden condition back in the day, but that no longer seems to be the case. There's a specific list of end conditions for invisibility, and crossing an enemy's line of sight isn't on it. The only things are if you make an attack, if you make you know, you talk higher than a whisper, cast a vocal component spell, or the enemy finds you. And it says a paragraph above it that the enemy finds you via a perception check. So that's interesting, and I've seen a lot of people complain about that. I personally don't have such a problem with it. I mean, people don't have 360-degree vision, and people can get distracted, and sometimes people don't even see what's in their line of sight. For example, that famous "Did you see the gorilla" video? I'll put a link to that below, although I guess it doesn't really matter since I ruined it for you. But in any case, yeah, all that stuff kind of, makes sense to me. And so, people who don't like it, I think, are, trying to use common sense, but it's just a fantasy trope that some people are supernaturally sneaky. And so I kind of like this. And I definitely like that you don't have to worry about the hidden condition, because that is just nowhere to be seen in any of these descriptions. Finally, we have the instance that being able to see an enemy with blind sight, or see invisibility or something, no longer confers the attacks at advantage and being attacked at disadvantage thing. This was also a very confusing thing, but if you'll note from the 2014 description, it's two separate bullet points. The the attacks part was separate from them being able to see you. So rules as written, even if they saw you through an ability or a sense, they still had to deal with the attacks thing. And this was confirmed by Jeremy Crawford, that it was intended to work that way, and that's why they made it two separate bullet points. But it seems like they've changed their mind, and in 2024 it specifies that if the enemy can somehow see you, then you don't get to experience the attacks thing. Now, I will say it's a little interesting to me, because since you now no longer know their location, just being invisible conceals you in all ways, they would have to pick the square that you're in order to attack you, even at disadvantage. So I do think that's kind of a buff to things like greater invisibility and cloak invisibility, where you're not ruining it by attacking. So you can attack them and then move to another square, and they really can't attack you back, because they can't target you unless they know what square they're in, unless they're randomly picking a square, but that's probably not going to work out too well for them, right? So yeah, those are the three major changes to hiding and stealth. Again, there's no separate hidden condition. It seems that invisible is all there is, and entering stealth with a hide check or a stealth check makes you invisible. 2, crossing an enemy's line of sight does not ruin the invisible condition. And 3, if you can see them, you don't have to deal with the attacks or disadvantage. It's a thing. So yeah, I like these changes. It's still a little bit confusing. I think they could have wrote it better. Mike Merles had a tweet pointing out that they completely forgot to point out that you are impossible to see when you're invisible, like they did in the 2014 edition. But yeah, in any case, I like these changes, and I'm happy to see them in 2024. I think it makes things a little bit less confusing. Not completely clear, but less confusing. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching. This has been Bill Bronze and Dragons. I'm your host, Bill Bron Bafflestone. See you next time.